So today we are going to be talking all about growing out bleached hair. I do realize that my hair looks a little rugged right now because I had decided a few months ago to actually stop bleaching it in an effort to grow out my natural color, which proved to be unsatisfying. So the reason I'm making this video today is because I actually intend to dye this musty, dusty thing back to my natural color. But that does not take away from the fact that for the last 7 years, I have been excessively and repeatedly bleaching this mop. And at the same time, deciding to go extension free and grow it long and healthy. So let's get into it. If you have watched my last channel, you may have seen a video that I did that was talking about going from black hair to blonde hair and how to achieve that with the minimal amount of damage. Now, I realized from seeing the comments in that video years ago when I had posted it that there is a lot of people that do not understand how to keep your hair healthy when it's bleached. They think that it's not possible, that you have to wear extensions, that if you're bleaching your hair, that it's going to cause excessive damage, that you're going to have breakage, that pretty much your hair is going to look like shit. And that is not the truth. In fact, that's actually very far from the truth. Now, I do want to preface by saying that I was a licensed hairdresser. I still am a licensed hairdresser, although I have not practiced hair or worked in a salon for many years. But I do have a history of being a hairdresser. I went to school for hairdressing and cosmetology, and so I do have a lot of knowledge about what I am going to be talking about. So let's get into it. The first tip that I'm going to say is probably the most controversial because a lot of people don't really understand the kind of products that they're applying on their hair. And, maybe you have stronger hair than other people. Maybe you cleanse your hair more than other people. And so this can be a give or take for somebody. But for myself, this was a big tip that I thought really helped my hair growth. And that was to limit the amount of products that I was using. So I'm talking about things like hairsprays, which can contain things like alcohol, which can actually dry out your hair shaft and contribute to the dryness of your hair, the breakage of your hair. Things like mousses and hairsprays can also build up on the scalp. And if you're not properly clarifying your hair or you're going too many days in between washing, then you can actually get a buildup on your scalp, which can have a huge impact on the growth of your hair. Now, the second thing would be something like a dry shampoo, which can do the exact same thing. So there is this misconception that the longer you go without washing your hair, the better, which can be true for some people, for certain hair textures, for certain skin types even, because an oilier scalp may need to wash their hair more than someone with a drier scalp. But this is not true across the board. I have chosen not to use things like dry shampoos because it does build up on the scalp. It can have things like alcohols, depending on the product you're using, which can actually be detrimental to growing new hair. Again, depends on the brand you're using. You should always research the products and know what they're doing for your hair instead of just trusting some influencer on the internet or grabbing a product off the shelf without really knowing what's in it and knowing your skin type, your hair type, all of those sorts of things. But for me, I chose to only do a shampoo, a mask or a conditioner, and a hair oil, and that was it. I have not used any other products. When heat styling my hair and so on, I decided I'm not going to use hairsprays. I'm not going to use any other sort of projects. And if my curls get flatter throughout the day, or if they get flatter through Monday to Tuesday, then that's just what it is. And I believe that this has been hugely beneficial for my own hair. The second thing, and this one is a huge one, and to be honest, it's something that I wish I had thought of sooner, because obviously when I worked in a salon, I dealt with all different types of hair, all different types of hair textures, hair types, etc. And this is to sleep with a silk bonnet. Now, you don't necessarily need to do a bonnet. It can be a scarf. You can choose for a silk pillowcase, but the silk bonnet was so helpful to me. Not even just limiting the friction between my hair and the pillowcase, which can lead to a lot of breakage, but also in extending the amount of time that I could go between heat styling. So I'm talking about curling my hair, sleeping with the silk bonnet on, and waking up the next day and still actually having beautiful... What was that? Have you ever choked on your own spit? Because that just happened. waking up the next morning and actually still having beautiful curls. And I found that I could extend this usually to the third day, which is about the time that I would wash my hair again. Now, for my personal hair type, I just kind of wash it whenever I feel like it's greasy. I am a person that works out and exercises. I live in a really hot climate, so the amount of time that I can go between wash days really varies depending on what I'm doing, if I'm working out a lot, if I'm inside or outside a lot. But I do believe that as much as it's important to allow your body's natural sebum, the oils, to go down into your hair because it is beneficial, you also don't want to let it get to a groggy, greasy place because it will draw bacteria and it will have an impact on your hair growth. Also, getting buildup of just dirt and environmental factors is going to be just as detrimental as getting buildup of products. Now, the other point that I would say, and this one is also going to be controversial, but listen, it's just the truth. And I noticed this not only with growing my hair out, but also growing my nails, growing my eyelashes, having skin that looks lustrous and radiant, is what you're going to eat. Now, what happens on the inside of our body is going to show on the outside of our body. And there are things like collagens, fats, omegas, all of these sorts of things, biotin, are going to contribute to your hair, your skin, your nails. And that is also your eyelashes. Like all of those sorts of things are going to come from having a healthy body on the inside. So if you are a person that's lacking a lot of things in your diet, it might be worth supplementing those things. I personally choose to not supplement for them anymore, although I have taken biotin and omegas in the past. I choose to get it through my diet. But if you are a person that is not eating healthy fats in your diet, you know, a lot of seeds, nuts, eggs, fish, things like that, I would try and supplement those because it is going to have an impact on your overall beauty, let alone your hair. Now, when it comes to, I think, the number one most important tip, and this may get pushback, but I wholeheartedly believe it because I have worked in multiple salons. I worked with, you know, the best hairdressers and some that I think were just barely scraping by. Choosing your hairdresser is everything. There are so many people that don't know what they're doing, and that's just the truth. There are people that graduate just barely graduating, and there are people that excel in their field. There are people that graduate and never take another course and never keep up with the newest information, the newest techniques, the newest products. And there are people that are constantly learning, evolving, you know, they're keeping up with all of the new information, the new products, the new research. You need to be so careful who you're letting do your hair, especially when you're bleaching it, because no matter how slow you take it, no matter how many products you're doing, no matter how many of the other tips you're doing, if you are chemically lightening your hair and you have a person that doesn't know what they're doing, all of the other stuff doesn't matter, literally. For blonde hair, you want to make sure that you are not re-bleaching this. And I see it a lot with people that are, for example, getting highlights, that they will take previously bleached hair in the foil and slap lightener over it. Your hair should only be lightened one time. Once it's at the maximum lightness. So if you are familiar with hair, there's a scale from 1 to 10. Once it gets to the number you want, you do not want to be bleaching it over and over again. You do not want to be slapping lightener over lightener over lightener unless you are in the phase of getting to your desired color. And even if you are doing that, you do not want a person that's going to tell you when you walk in with black hair that you're going to leave with blonde hair that day. That I would immediately walk away because they're going to fry your hair. You're going to end up with cotton balls on your head. You're going to be brushing out clumps. You're going to have breakage everywhere. You're going to need to slap in extensions. And that's not what we're trying to achieve here. We are trying to achieve long, lustrous, healthy hair. So researching your hairdresser is going to be so important. This also goes for hairdressers that are going to crank through your hair when it's wet. Now, this is something I feel like so many people don't know, but you should not. You really should not brush your hair when it's wet. Now, let me elaborate on that because that statement alone sounds a little bit confusing, let me explain. When your hair is wet, you should do this to get out the knots, okay? Your knots are out, you're blow drying. You're blow drying until it's, let's say, 60% dry. When it's 60% dry, you're going to put in a little oil. You're going to put in a little heat protectant maybe. Heat protectant is also something that you can add if you feel like you need it. I do think that is beneficial if you heat style your hair a lot. I personally do not. And then you can start round brushing. And then you can start pulling through the hair because your hair is most susceptible to breakage when it's wet. If you have a hairdresser that you just finished washing your hair and they're cranking through it with a round brush, they are going to cause extreme breakage on your hair. I am talking the most kind of breakage that you can probably get other than the lightening process. Now, that is something that I think I see so many hairdressers doing, and it's just going to cause you more problems than it is good. Your hair is the most susceptible to breakage when it's wet. Please always remember that. And don't be afraid to tell your hairdresser, can we blow dry it a little bit first before you're going in with the round brush, before you're pulling and tugging at it. Now, another thing is you want to make sure that you yourself understand what the hairdresser is doing. Now, in Europe, it's different. It's, it goes by percentages. So 3%, 6%, 9%, etc. In North America, it goes 10 volume, 20 volume, 30 volume, 40 volume. You want to know what kind of hair type you have. You want to know that your hairdresser is doing a test patch. You want to know how your hair is going to respond to the lightener before you let them touch your whole head. So for me, I have never needed to go past a 20 volume. Like my natural hair on its own is really light, but there are a lot of hairdressers that don't know what they're doing. Like I said, they barely scraped by in school. They never keep up with new information, and they're slapping 40 volume on your head. I actually had this happen to me, and I was not paying attention when I should have been, and I should have known better. I should have looked. I should have asked the questions, but this person ended up burning my whole scalp. I still have pictures of that. I literally had burns on my whole scalp. Don't ask me how I felt in that moment, because she was not a nice lady. I was not a nice lady in that moment. But let me just say that you really want to know what you're doing. You need to be informed because you are the person that is going to allow this to happen. You're the person that is going to choose who is going to have control over this. And you always want to make sure that you're going to someone experienced. Now, listen, experience does not equal price. So if you're thinking, oh, I need to pay hundreds of dollars to get someone that knows what they're doing. No, you absolutely do not. There are good hairdressers in every price range. There are good hairdressers everywhere you look. You just need to do a little research. You may have to do a little digging around, but find someone that truly knows what they're doing. Find someone that is not going to go over the regrowth. Find someone that knows how to do a test patch, that knows how your hair is going to respond, that is not just going to willy-nilly everything. And understand that you have to have realistic expectations when you are stepping to achieving your goal. Now, the last tip I think I have, I should have made notes, maybe it would have been a little more cohesive, but here we are. The last tip that I have is heat styling. A lot of people, and this comes back to knowing your hair type, knowing your hairstyle. Listen, if you have extremely curly, coarse hair, you might need to use a more extreme heat. But if you're someone like me and you blow dry your hair and it's straight, you really do not need more than like 170 degrees. Now, I'm going to be honest, I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, and I probably should, but I never need, I'll put it over here. I never need to go above like 170 degrees. And back in the day when I also really didn't know what I was doing, like in high school, and I used to put my hair on the ironing board and just put an iron on it, true story. Maybe I'm showing my age, but true story. I was just doing so much damage to my hair. I mean, that thing looked awful. It was fried. It was ratchet. It was not looking good. And now over the years and, through learning and doing different courses through hair school and outside of hair school, continuing my education, I really realized that you do not need to go that extreme for most hair types. Now, you should figure out what kind of hair you have. you know, how strong your hair is, also how well your hair responds to color, how well your hair responds to hairstyling, etc., and figure out where you need to be on the scale of heat, because applying too much heat on your hair and too often is going to damage it. There's just no way around it. If you're running a flat iron through your hair every day at, you know, like 400 degrees, you're going to fry it. There's no way around it. You're going to do a lot of damage. So I think that if you can find an appropriate setting for your hair, if you can find appropriate products, if you need to go for a higher heat, you know, a heat protectant, you are going to save yourself a lot of stress and a lot of damage with your hair. Now, I don't know if I'm forgetting anything. I really hope not. You know, I wanted to film this video for a long time, but life is busy. I'm busy, you know. So I think that's everything. I think those are all my tips and tricks about maintaining healthy hair. I do think a lot of it comes down to just knowledge and really understanding your hair type. If you guys want, I can always do a video talking about the different hair types, talking about the different products and the different heats that can be appropriate for different hair types, different volumes that you should use. Now, this will be a rough estimate, of course, because you always need to see the hair in person, different levels of your hair and what kind of volumes you should use for those different levels. But I will show you guys this hair here now. She's ratchet, but that's okay because we're going to color her, and, you know, healthy hair is the most important thing, which I think is the last point I'm going to leave you guys with. You can have healthy hair. You can have healthy hair bleached. You can have healthy hair naturally. You can have healthy hair if it's really kinky, if it's really curly, if it's silky smooth. You can have healthy hair all across the board. Knowledge is power, and the more that you look into it and the more that you study and research and inform yourself about these sorts of things, you are going to have a much more successful journey. You know, don't fall victim to a lot of the marketing that's out there about, you know, you need this amazing product for your hair to do this and do that. You really don't. It's really very simple. Make sure you're getting the proper nutrients. Make sure that you are taking care of your hair in its most vulnerable states, coloring when it's wet, you know, with things like heat. And make sure that you're not applying an overload of products that could actually have ingredients that are not so great for your hair. Make sure that you're giving it a proper cleanse, that your skin on your head is staying healthy and free from buildup. And I think that's really it. So I hope this was helpful. And if you guys have any questions, leave it in the box down below because I would love to answer them for you. And yeah, I will update you guys when I color this girl. So I hope this video was helpful for you guys, and I will see you in the next video.